Hi, this is Nikki. This is the fourth video in My Eyes Your Eyes the Bridge, and it is titled My Experiences with Disability. I have last since filmed in January, so I have 6 months to kind of catch you up on. My experiences with disability differ from many other people with disabilities. I was born 3.5 months premature with, it's called retinopathy of prematurity, also called ROP, for those familiar with acronyms. I love the fact that I have grown to have a positive attitude regarding my disability, because as a child, when I first lost my sight, it was the most scariest thing I have ever gone through in my life. And I think that most people with disabilities can easily overcome the challenges that surround becoming disabled in our society and adjusting to society with a disability. And overcoming that is so important, because once we can overcome the transition and adapt to our lives again, we are able to be teachers to people with and without disabilities, either by living our lives efficiently and productively, or by activism, or by just being normal people. And the word normal is something that isn't quite applied to people with disabilities on a daily basis, because we do not fit the social norm. So we are striving to fit into ourselves as people, to recognize our strengths and abilities, and then to be able to apply our own strengths and abilities to the society that we're interacting with. And generally, it is not easy, and it's not to be raising a pity party, but it isn't always easy. So having the right attitude is important. It's almost key to have the right thinking. And by the right thinking, I mean thinking, I am pretty, I am amazing, even though I have a disability, or I can do this despite the ableism that is prevalent in our society. And by ableism, I mean people that think that we cannot do something because we have a disability. For example, I have a visual impairment. I can see light and shadows. However, I am a film director, as well as having a bachelor's in social work, and in the process currently of working on my master's degree in social work. So I have been able to have to counter a lot of this ableism by saying, yes, I can do this, by telling myself first that I can do this, looking in the mirror and saying, I can do this no matter what anyone says, and then going out every day and trying to prove it. Even though I don't feel necessarily I have to prove myself to other people, we do have to prove ourselves to other people, being that we have to be able to break the mold, or compete for jobs, or compete for scholarships, or compete for rental in an apartment complex where we're dealing with other people that aren't maybe living on fixed incomes. And it's horrible, because I personally, I'm not a competitive person, and I don't like it. But I've seen in our society that competition is something that exists in the disability community, in any community, especially in the disability community. My experiences in the disability community are definitely a mixed bag of positive and negative. For example, many people who are blind and visually impaired, we're all competing with each other in the world, and we're competing with general society. So I compete with myself. I'm trying to compete with my personal best from yesterday and improve it each day. So oftentimes I'm not seeing competition in the way that maybe the general population sees it. I'm not trying to win a race with my peers. I'm actually trying to win the race with myself. So I'm kind of blind, so to speak, when it comes to competition or recognizing it or knowing when it's happening to be able to discern what moves I should make. So that's something I have had to learn, especially going to college, being the first member of my family to receive a bachelor's degree in college, having no one to look up to. It exists in college, and it's horrible. Um, Another thing I want to touch on is bullying with and without disabilities. People bully. It's something that exists everywhere. It's not just people without disabilities bullying people with disabilities. It's people with and without disabilities bullying each other. And I think it goes back to the competition piece that I discussed early on in this video. We are set up in our society to compete, and the ones that think that they see someone that's weaker thinks that they can take them out easier, and that's back to where I go about we have to continue to prove ourselves. And the problem with proving ourselves is we already have a billion other things to do. We have schoolwork or jobs or rent or trying to stay above on bills, living on fixed incomes if we're not working, or working enough hours so we don't lose our Social Security disability. So we are just constantly in this mix in society, constantly just back and forth in this endless cycle. Bullying is a problem. It's a huge problem. And I believe it starts as early as preschool and goes up through college and grad school because that's the way people were conditioned. And it needs to stop, especially the saddest bullying is the bullying that goes on within the disability community, where you have people with disabilities bullying other people with disabilities. It's something that I am going to address in My Eyes Your Eyes too, very thoroughly, because I have had experiences with bullying. I have had friends that have been bullied with disabilities, and it stings, especially a person like me that had vision as a child, and I saw how socially different it was to lose my vision, and then the way people started to talk to me like I was a child. Even though I'm 27 years old, I can still go in the grocery store and get talked down to by a cashier who might not realize that I'm the one earning the money that's paying for the items going into my grocery bag. However, if I take a friend to the grocery store with me, the cashier, on many incidences, will try to hand my credit card or my change back to the person standing next to me. How does that cashier know that person's not going to pocket my change? How does that cashier know that that person's actually trustworthy? It's innocent and intentional ignorance in our society. And I strongly believe in two types of ignorance, and there's the intentional and there's the unintentional, which is the innocent ignorance. And an example of innocent ignorance would be the person that is going to ask me, how are you able to take the bus to class if you can't see? And I will explain to them, well, I learn orientation and mobility to learn where the bus stop is. And the buses usually have an audible system, if you're lucky, that tells you where to get off at. And if not, the drivers usually tell you and remember who you are and remember your stop if you ask them to. That's an example of innocent ignorance, because if you don't have an experience with a person with a disability, you're not going to know. And oftentimes the best teachers are people with disabilities explaining things to people without disabilities, or the cross disability connections with people of differing disabilities. My friends that use wheelchairs are going to have a different mobility system than I am, being ambulatory and just having a visual impairment. The intentional ignorance is going back to the bullying or the competition. That's intentional. That's someone choosing to not learn. That's someone choosing to exclude someone with a disability from a job or from an internship or from a social outing because they don't think that they can participate. That's intentional ignorance, because they're not taking the time to learn. They're not taking the time to listen. And people with disabilities are the experts on their individual disabilities. And some of us over time become lucky enough to be experts on other disabilities by gaining friendships or reading blogs from people with disabilities that keep up or read research studies or articles on disability, but this has to come from the people with disabilities or the people that work firsthand with people with disabilities. A common example is the portrayal of actors in movies. There's this Lifetime movie that I saw a number of years ago where there was a woman portraying a blind woman. And in the scene, she poured hot water into a strainer out of a tea kettle instead of pouring it into a coffee cup, which completely upset me because that made the woman portrayed people who are blind and visually impaired as being incompetent. Not seeing does not mean you're not smart. It just means that you're not seeing a piece of the world that other people are seeing. But you adapt to be able to see it in different ways. Just like people in wheelchairs can use their hands in place of what they would use their legs for. Their upper body strength can make up for the lack of the lower body strength. And I have friends that are into sports, definitely, who are just amazing because they've learned how to adapt to their disabilities. And that's going back to what I was talking about in the beginning of the video about learning how to adapt to your disability, learning how to cope. And it takes years, and it takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes many gallons of patience. For me, being that I tend to speak what's on my mind, I've had to practice a lot of tongue biting, especially with the incidences in the grocery stores that I was mentioning before. And I will say that it is much easier to self-advocate when dealing with strangers than it is when dealing with friends or dealing with family. When to say, I got this, I can do this, or no, I don't feel like lending you $100 because you think I have a fixed income and have that much money to spare you. Or yes, I do feel like lending it this month. Or no, maybe I can't do this task right here. I need your help to do this. It is knowing when to ask for help, when to not ask for help, and it's a tedious, tedious slide because you have people that are seeing you from outside of your life, judging you, and making comments about you, and it isn't always pleasant. And I have had to deal with that a lot. And if someone like me can learn how to bite my tongue, anyone can, because I seriously can spout off some pretty nasty stuff when I'm upset. And I know this about myself and I work on it. So this film, I hope, was able to help you a little bit to understand where people with disabilities are coming from, and I'm speaking about our population in a general sense because I do not intend to be the spokesperson for all living with disabilities, because that's a dangerous road, because I don't know everything about disabilities. I don't know about MS because I don't have MS. I don't know what it's like to be hearing impaired because I'm not hearing impaired. I don't know all the terminology all the time about what person would like to be called deaf, what person would like to be called hearing impaired. I do want to touch on a very important piece about what I've noticed about people who are blind and visually impaired or low vision, is that each of those words means a different thing. It's not a different way to say someone's blind. It's not, visually impaired is not the PC way to say someone's blind. Blind is not a derogatory word. It just means that someone who is totally blind, maybe who has been totally blind since birth, doesn't have the sight to be able to see, but someone like me who has had vision is visually impaired. I can see light and I can see shadows, and I can sometimes see colors if the sun is bright enough around me. And someone who's blind doesn't have that experience, so I can't speak on someone who's never seen colors because I don't have that experience. So that's where we get sticky about generalizing, and I don't want to appear as though I'm generalizing when I say people with disabilities. Saying people with disabilities is the most PC term to use when describing our population as a whole, and it's person first language because I am a person before my disability. I am not a blind girl. I am not a blink or a bat or all the other derogatory terms there are for people with this visual impairments and blindness. And the sad part about that is blink and bat and those derogatory terms have come from within our population. And that's something that's upsetting to me, and I do have to take a stand on directly and say, if in our own population of people who are blind and visually impaired, we are coming up with these derogatory terms to call people who are completely blind bats, that's teaching the outside population that it's okay to throw around that language, when it's not. And we have to be sensitive. And people with disabilities, especially activists, are generally accused of being the language police. But that's sometimes some of the stuff just sounds ridiculous when you're walking down the street and you're getting called a bat and you're just like, whoa, dude, like I don't live in a cave and I'm not flying around like a bat. Like, to be demeaned to an animal that has no sight just because we have no sight is just pretty much ridiculous, and coming from within our population is even more ridiculous. So that's just something that I definitely feel kind of adds to the discrimination and stereotyping that we already deal with every day. And ourselves, each of us, every day, can't be responsible for reducing discrimination and stereotyping for people with disabilities by ourselves. A couple days ago, I was walking down a flight of stairs in a house designed in the late 1800s where the stairs are a lot steeper. I flew down those stairs, and that is something that doesn't happen to me every day. And if someone were to see that who doesn't know me, they would generalize that, unfortunately, to say, oh, well, she obviously doesn't know how to walk because she can't see. And that's just like, no, that doesn't happen to me every day. I usually am the one falling up the stairs because I'm always running around 100 miles an hour. So that was a new experience for me to go sliding down a flight of stairs. But that was something that, stuff happens. So we just laugh about it. I tend to laugh at myself a lot because it's the only thing you can do after a while. You don't want to be crying about things every day, and crying is something that is natural and should be done periodically because we have to cycle in our emotions appropriately. But I tend to just try to laugh at things because it was pretty funny, like sliding down those stairs, like on my back, going down, like in my socks. Like I felt like I was a little kid again in those footy pajamas, just sliding down. I don't know. It was pretty funny. So that's what we have to. And I can't be responsible if somebody sees me do that and goes, oh, man, she's not good at being blind or visually impaired today. No, that's not my responsibility. I can't. My documentaries are designed to reduce stereotyping and discrimination. That's what I intend them to do. But I interview many different people, and I myself don't use all of my own thoughts, and I tend to try to stay objective on a lot of things to be able to cover many points of view to get as many aspects as possible. But sometimes I just can't hold back. Like on the bat and blink thing, like that's ridiculous to me, to go back to the derogatory terms for people who are blind and visually impaired coming from within our population. That to me is just, it's wrong. And that is something that goes back to the bullying piece that I'm talking about, how we categorize each other. To say that someone with more sight's more important than someone with less sight within our population, like there's some sort of hierarchy. And I've kind of seen it over the years, where I've seen people with more vision hang out with people with more vision, and then people with less vision hang out with people with less vision. I don't know why that happens, and I'm not saying it happens every day, and it doesn't happen in every place. Yeah, the bullying in the blindness community is rough. I don't have a lot of close friends who are blind and visually impaired simply because of the bullying. And the last subject I'm going to touch on before I close out this video is my experiences with being bullied and why I'm continuing to work on my documentaries. My bullying count actually went up about 10, 20 points since My Eyes Your Eyes came out, because people who are blind and visually impaired, everyone's a critic. So people are seeing the film and they're saying, oh, she didn't say retinopathy of prematurity right. She said prematurity of retinopathy. Or she said in this place. Well, why isn't she edit that out? I mean, that's the kind of, shorthanded criticisms that I see, and that kind of criticism to me isn't valid criticism. Why was there ums in my documentary? Because it's a documentary. It's supposed to be natural. I don't want to force myself to have to be a statue when I'm narrating or when I do have to do shots on camera because it's not realistic. And as humans, we say um, exactly. We do. So it's just so that's the kind of experiences that I've had. I use my Facebook page to share disability related articles, to inspirational articles, to be able to kind of like keep it peppy, so I'm not always blogging about the bullying or the depressing aspects. And I've had someone write on my page I was evil over a story about a manager in a restaurant in Grand Rapids denying customers in wheelchairs because or customers that use service dogs because of the food and the contamination aspect of it. And the person was a vet, a war veteran, and I have several hundred people on my Facebook page. Most of them I know from here and there and everywhere, friends and family, close friends. And I deleted over 100 people off my page this year. Some because I didn't want them being exposed to what was said on my page, just to protect them, and others because they were trolling my page. And before My Eyes Your Eyes, I was not experiencing that kind of stuff on the internet. I was pretty much clear of that. So putting My Eyes Your Eyes on YouTube had many positive aspects because it was able to be more accessible to people that maybe weren't close to me physically, that couldn't receive a copy of a DVD or didn't have the money to buy it. I have sent many DVDs out over the mail and had people purchase that way. I try to be as accessible as possible. But there's many downsides to it because I am out here on the internet. I am talking about this stuff, and I am naturally a really private person, so this has taken many steps for me to be out here doing this work on film. I did 4 years of pure education theater, my last 2 years of high school, my first couple of years of college. So I have 4 years of acting experience and playwriting experience and script writing experience, and took a class in college, a theater arts class, and directed a 20-minute play. So I have a lot of experience and doing films as well. It's just hard because I am throwing myself out here, and I didn't intend to be trolled the way I was. I didn't intend for people to call me evil or just say horrible things. And Facebook is seriously something that I love Facebook for a number of reasons if it's used properly. But honestly, Facebook is a pain. People can Facebook stalk you. People can misread a status or, misperceive an idea that was meant to say something else, or misperceive the tone of an idea. And it got so bad for me that I didn't even want to log on to my Facebook account. I had the worst experience was a 78 comment status completely mocking a status that I had up on my page. I was sick and I needed to get in touch with people, and I didn't have their phone numbers because I was having computer issues, and I was sick on antibiotics. I was in bed, and someone mocked my status, completely made fun of me, said I was lazy and a bad example to all people who are blind and visually impaired. I have had other people write things that I'm a bad example to people who are going into social work and psychology because of how my film is done. Everybody's a critic, and I've had to overcome that, and it wasn't easy. It was not easy. There was a point last year where I wanted to just pull my films from YouTube, but then I thought better of it because there are so many people that are being helped by this. And that is the downside of being public about disability rights and equality and discrimination and bullying, is that people don't like the word bullying for some reason. Bullying is a really strong word. Bullying pisses people off. It should. The act of bullying should, not the act of doing something about bullying. So I overcome that Facebook status. I decided not to press charges because the 3 girls involved were former friends. So I thought that I would let them slide because at first I wanted to sue them off for $1 million and for expenses and for the medical bills that caused, because I ended up reading the statuses and throwing up all over the place for 3 days in a row. uh, from having my nerves being so shot, because one of the girls had 77 mutual friends with me, and most of those friends were friends that I introduced her to. So I decided that I would cut them a break, and if anything came up, give them a chance, because they both, 2 of the girls apologized via email. They were very wishy-washy, indecisive apologies, but it was an apology. And I took that apology and I decided to be the bigger person, and I decided that I would give them a chance. And then I said if they ever did it again, that I would press charges. And that's what gets scary, is having to deal with former friends that will try to use social media to hurt you. And that hurts. And it hurts when I spend a lot of my waking hours writing up blogs or putting ideas down for the next movie, or brainstorming contacts or people that I can interview, or planning to go basically from Oregon to New York on this next movie, fundraising every waking hour, getting people on my side to be able to help me, to be able to convince them that this is a good cause, that they should invest their time in and help me with. I can't always pay people. I have to fundraise for cameras and editing equipment, and for a computer, for Firewire, for things that I might need specifically for editing that I'm not going to be using on a day-to-day basis with my schoolwork. So I will say to anyone that thinks that it's okay to bully on Facebook, it's not. And if you're watching this video and you're thinking that, you're mad at somebody, don't bring it up over Facebook. Call that person, because I could have done several different things after reading that Facebook status. I could have committed suicide. I could have done anything, and of course I didn't, because I wouldn't do that. But if somebody else saw a 78 comment status about them all over Facebook, that could have pushed someone over the edge. And that is the kind of thing that's happening across our society with these teens committing suicide. And these children, there was a case of a child that was 7 years old that committed suicide because he was being bullied. And that's the kind of thing that needs to stop. And I will run bullying into the ground in My Eyes Your Eyes too, because it is bad. I mean, I'm a grad student, and that Facebook fiasco happened back in February. And I'm a grad student and I'm still dealing with this. And I thought I put that kind of behavior back in high school or elementary school. And this goes back to the whole piece I was talking about, where bullying starts as early as preschool and just spirals all the way up through elementary school. And like I said, if you can take anything from anything I post, any blog I write, any video, is if you have a problem with somebody, bring it to their attention calmly and rationally, and between that person. My favorite scripture in the Bible talks about that, about, the appropriate way to fix something is to go to that person's face and talk to them about it. So this has been My Eyes, Your Eyes, the bridge, the 4th video in my series. I want you to stay tuned for 2 more videos that are coming up this summer that are scripts that I've written and that will be performed. So it's a little bit different than the documentary style. This is more monologue type style. So those are the next two upcoming videos to look forward to. And I really hope that this helps people with and without disabilities understand a lot of the issues, because it's a huge amount of issues, and breaking them down is key to be able to understand them. So thank you for watching, and I hope this helps you.